Welcome to the second video of Module 6. In the previous video, we have discussed the concept of terms of trade, how it is calculated, why it is important, and what are the different types of terms of trade. In this video, we are going to discuss various factors affecting terms of trade and the concept of gains from trade. The terms of trade of a country are influenced by a number of factors. We are going to discuss some prominent factors out of them. The first factor which affects terms of trade is reciprocal demand. The terms of trade of a country depends upon reciprocal demand, that is, the strength and elasticity of each country's demand for the other country's product. Imagine two countries. Germany produces linen and England produces cloth. If Germany's demand for England's cloth becomes more intense, that is inelastic, the price of clothes rises more than the price of linen. The commodity terms of trade will move against Germany and in favor of England. On the other hand, if England's demand for Germany's linen becomes more intense, the price of linen will rise more than the price of cloth, and the commodity terms of trade will move in favor of Germany and against England. In diagram A, OE is the offer curve of England and OZ is the offer curve of Germany. A is the point where the two offer curves intersect each other. This is the equilibrium point at which OC of cloth is traded by England for OL, that is linen of Germany, for OL linen of Germany. The terms of trade are represented by the slope of the ray OT. Suppose England's demand for Germany's linen increases. Now England will be prepared to sell more cloth for Germany's linen. The increase in England's demand is shown by the shifting of its offer curve to the right as OE1, which intersects Germany's offer curve OZ at point A in diagram A. Now, the new terms of trade are represented by the ray OT1, whereby England exports OC1 units of cloth for OL units of linen. The terms of trade have deteriorated for England and improved for Germany. The new terms of trade, as shown by the slope of ray OT2, indicate that they have deteriorated for Germany and improved for England. This is evident from the fact that Germany export LL more linen in exchange for C2 less cloths. But the terms of trade will depend upon the elasticity of demand of the offer curve of each country. This is evident from the fact that England exports CC more unit of cloth in exchange for LL units of linen. CC is greater than LL1. Similarly, in diagram B, if Germany's demand for England's cloth increases, Germany's offer curve shifts to the left as OZ, which intersects England's initial offer curve OE at A2. Now, Germany exports OL2 units of linen for OC units of cloths. The more inelastic the offer curve of a country, the more unfavorable are the terms of trade for it in relation to the other country. On the contrary, the more elastic its offer curve, the more favorable are its terms of trade in relation to the other country. The initial equilibrium terms of trade are represented by OT with OE and OZ curves intersecting at point A. England trades OC of cloth with OL of linen of Germany. When the OZ curve of Germany shifts to OZ1, it cuts the OE curve of England at A1, and the terms of trade line is OT1. Germany's offer curve OZ1 being inelastic in relation to England's offer curve OE, Germany's demand for English cloth is more intense than before. The next factor affecting terms of trade is changes in factor endowment. Factor endowments refers to the mix of resources a country can use for economic production, such as land, oil, or other minerals, and non-natural resources such as labor and capital. Changes in factor endowments of a country affects its terms of trade. Changes in factor endowments may increase exports or reduce them. With taste remaining unchanged, they may lead to change in the terms of trade. The effect of change in factor endowments of terms of trade of a country can be represented with the diagram. So in the diagram, OE is the offer curve of England and OZ is the offer curve of Germany. Before any change in factor endowments, the terms of trade of England and Germany are settled at point L, where they trade OC of cloth for CL of linen. Suppose there is an increase in the supply of Germany's factors of production. As a result, the new offer curve of Germany is OZ1. At the old terms of trade, OT, Germany would be at point L, where it would export more linen, that is C1L1, and import English cloth OC1. But England may not be willing to trade with Germany at the old terms of trade because of its inability to produce so much cloth as its factors, endowments, and taste remain unchanged. Thus, the terms of trade will settle on the new terms of trade line OT1, where England's offer curve OE intersects Germany's new offer curve OZ at point LT at L2. Germany's export C2L2 of linen in exchange of OC2 of cloth from England. Thus, the terms of trade have moved against Germany from L to L2 with change in its factor endowments because it exports more linen C2L2 than before, that is CL. The next factor affecting terms of trade is change in technology. Technological changes also affect the terms of trade of a country. Suppose there is change in technology in Germany. Before technological change, the terms of trade between Germany and England are settled at point L on the OT ray, where Germany exports CL of linen for OC of England cloth. With technological change, Germany's new offer curve is OZ, which cut the terms of trade line OT at L1. At this point, Germany would like to export less linen, that is C1L1, and import less cloth, that is OC1. Then England want to exchange at the terms of trade OT. So Germany's terms of trade improve when its new offer curve OZ intersects England's unchanged offer curve OE at L, where the new terms of trade are settled on the line OT1. At L2, Germany is better off because it exports less linen from more of England's cloth, that is, C2L2 is smaller than OC2. Its terms of trade have improved with technological change. The next factor affecting terms of trade is taste of the people. Change in the taste of the people of a country also influence its terms of trade with another country. Suppose England's taste shifts from Germany's linen to its own cloth. In this situation, England would export less cloth to Germany and its demand for Germany's linen would also fall. Thus, England's terms of trade would improve. On the contrary, a change in England's taste for Germany's linen would increase its demand and hence the terms of trade would deteriorate for England. In the diagram, we can observe that when England's taste changed from Germany's linen to its own cloth, its offer curve shifts up to OE1 and intersect Germany's unchanged offer curve OZ at L1. As a result, England exports only OC1 of cloth in exchange for C1L1 of Germany's linen. Obviously, England's terms of trade have improved, for now it exchanges less cloth, OC1, for more linen of Germany, that is C1L1. That is, OC1 is smaller than C1L1. The next factor affecting terms of trade is economic growth. Economic growth is another important factor which affects the terms of trade. The rising of a country's national product or income over the time is called economic growth. Given the taste and technology in a country, an increase in its productive capacity may affect favorably or adversely its terms of trade. The production possibility curve and the community indifference curve of a country which experience economic growth. In the diagram, E1 is the production possibility curve of England before growth, where the slope of T1 shows its terms of trade. Before growth, it is producing at S and consuming at C on the community indifference curve C1. Thus, England is exporting R1S1 of cloth and importing R1C1 of linen from Germany. When growth takes place, the production possibility curve E1 shift outward as E2. The new terms of trade after growth, as represented by the slope of the line T2, show an improvement when production takes place at point S2 on the production possibility curve E2 and consumption at point C of the community indifference curve CI2. As a result of the improvement in England's terms of trade, it exports less cloth to Germany in exchange for more linen than in the pre-growth situation. It exports R2S2, which is less than R1S1, and imports R2C2, which is greater than R1C1. The next factor affecting terms of trade is tariff. An import tariff improves the terms of trade of the imposing country. In the diagram, the offer curves of England and Germany before the imposition of tariff are OE and OZ respectively. The initial terms of trade are given by the line OT. England is exporting OC of cloth and importing CL of linen from Germany. Suppose a tariff is imposed on Germany's linen by England. It shifts the offer curve of England from OE to OE1. This changes the terms of trade OT to OT1 in favor of England. Now, England exports OC of cloth in exchange for C1L1 of linen from Germany. It now exports CC1 is equal to ML1 less of cloth than before and imports ML less of linen. Since the quantity of export reduced as a result of tariff by England is greater than the quantity of imports reduced by Germany, ML1 smaller than ML. The terms of trade have definitely moved in favor of England. The next factor affecting terms of trade is devaluation. Currency devaluation refers to the downward adjustment to a country's value of money relative to a foreign currency. Devaluation raises the domestic price of imports and reduces the foreign price of exports of a country, devaluating its currency in relation to the currency of another country. Professor Hirsch suggests that the right procedure should be to study price movements in exports and imports in the same currency in order to assess the true effects of devaluation. Both exports and imports prices normally rise in the home currency and fall in the foreign currency. The commodity terms of trade will deteriorate only when export prices fall more than import prices in terms of domestic currency. In reality, the elasticities of demand and supply for exports and imports of a devaluating country determined deterioration of improvement in its terms of trade. If both the foreign demands for exports and home demand for imports are highly elastic and supplies both to home exports and foreign imports are highly inelastic to price movements, devaluation leads to an improvement in the commodity terms of trade. Suppose English pound is devaluated in relation to German mark and the price movements before and after devaluation are taken in pound. In the diagram, the pre-devaluation price of OC exports is OPX and that of OL imports is OPM. The post-devaluation export price rises to OP1X when the demand curve shifts upward to and the import prices rise to OP1M with the shifting of the supply curve to the left as S1M. A comparison reveals that the export price has risen more than the import price. That is, PX P1X is greater than PM P1 in, and that while exports have risen from OC to OC1, imports have fallen from OL to OL1. This proves that the terms of trade have improved for England after devaluation. So, this was all about various factors affecting terms of trade. Now, we will discuss the concept of gains from trade. Gains from trade refers to the increase in welfare experienced by a country by engaging in trade. It is advantageous for any country of the world to involve in trade with another country, as trade is mutually beneficial for both or all the trading countries. the countries, whether developed or underdeveloped, trade with each other. But it is to be kept in mind that the gain accrued from trade can never be equal for all these countries. Some countries may reap more gain, while for some the gain may be less. However, this situation of trade is better than no trade or a Turkey condition. Thank you. This was all about major factors that affects terms of trade of a country and the concept of gains from trade. Thank you.